You're now tuned into the hottest podcast in the world, the Stay Woke Podcast, right here on the SonicBreakdown.com.
Welcome back to another Stay Woke Podcast. This is D. Ray Brinson, and you know the Stay Woke Podcast is presented by the SonicBreakdown.com. If you haven't checked out a review or looked at the website, please check it out. So today we have a special guest in the building. The special guest joining us today is Jason Terrell. And he's going to be joining us for a segment I call Let's Talk About It. And we're going to get to know him a little bit more and get to know about the great work that he's doing. If you don't know about him, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about him, and then I'll let him go into a little bit more detail. He's the co-founder/director of a great organization called Profound Gentlemen. And then we'll get into that a little bit more later. But I want to get to know about him first and get to know about the man behind the organization. And so, where are you from, man? Let's start with that. The like basic number one question.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, so primarily in Cascade, that area, near the airport.
Okay. I know exactly where that area is, yeah.
So 1710 Runners Road is the street I grew up on, so my grandparents still live there.
Okay.
So I was raised by my grandparents. So, kind of my grandfather's a pastor, so he kind of raised in the church back home, but that's kind of where I'm from.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can definitely relate to that because my grandmother had a big influence on raising me as well as my brothers. So I understand how special they can have a space in our hearts as well as influence us.
Definitely.
How do you think, especially the fact that your grandfather's a pastor, how do you think that influenced you as a child as well as, moving forward till now?
I definitely think, my granddad has this idea about giving back to like the community, so if you meet him, he still he's retired, but he still goes into like nursing homes and he's 75 years old himself and preaches, and he always wears a kufi and dashikis and different things. So he's very Afrocentric, but so I kind of got a little bit of that from him, like that kind of Afrocentrism that he has. But then also like this idea of like always doing work for the community and supporting, people that you care about and love. And so a lot of those traits I still kind of carry with me and still hold dear to myself.
What about your grandmother?
Yeah, so she's a big influence. My grandmother, she stayed at home. So she retired. So I never knew her to work. I know she used to work, but when I was when I came up, she wasn't. So my parents, my parents are in my life. My parents had me in high school. So for the most part, my grandparents raised me just because they couldn't. But eventually I started living with my parents around like 6 or 7, maybe 8 years old. I was just kind of with me and my parents after that.
I can definitely relate to that experience as well. Very similar. My grandmother was very instrumental in especially my youth. I remember elementary school, her taking me walking me to kindergarten and things of that nature. And then later I moved in with my mom and stuff. So
same experience.
Exactly. And I know that had a tremendous effect on me in a positive as well as a negative. How do you think that related to you?
I never thought about the negative. I think,
but that speaks to your character, though.
Yeah,
you might be just an optimistic person.
Yeah, so I'm sure that I'm thinking actually now that there are like some things that I didn't necessarily agree with my grandparents, of course, just because they come from their old school mentality, and so just I was born in the 1990s, so we just have a different set of thinking when it comes to a lot of issues. So even though I'm very much supportive of the community, very much supportive of like giving back, but I do it in a different way than my grandparents do. So I never thought about the negative implications, but there are some when it came to that.
Okay. Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I'm the oldest. It's 4 boys. So I'm I have a 19-year-old brother, a 13-year-old brother, and then he just turned 2. But a 2-year-old brother as well.
Oh, wow.
So there's a big gap. So everybody is back in Atlanta. My other brother, he's in college right now. He's a junior. And then, so then me. So I'm the oldest.
Again, I can relate to that. I'm the oldest of 3.
Yeah.
My younger brother's 2 years, and then the youngest brother is 6 years younger than me.
Wow,
so
yeah.
I definitely understand that gap.
Yeah.
As well as having siblings closer to you as well.
Yeah.
Are you close with your siblings, all of them?
Yeah. For the most part, I think, I'm closer with my 19-year-old brother. Like every summer, he stays with me. I try to give him an internship, whatever city I'm in. So he comes up and lives with me, sleeps on my couch, whatever. My 13-year-old brother, because he's 13, he's still in his little age right now. But when I go home, I always just check in on him. And then of course the 2-year-old brother doesn't know just yet who I am. But I definitely I need to be more present. But when I'm home, I try to at least like see him and just play with them a little bit.
Was your relationship with your 19-year-old brother always as close? Because I noticed with me and my brother, we were close when we were really young, and then as we got, I'll say mid-age, like middle school, high school, we were so different that we were always butting heads. We couldn't understand our differences. And then as we got older, we kind of got back to how we were when we were younger.
That's exactly
we're really close now.
That's exactly how we were. So my brother, he's very similar to I am in terms of just like how we grew up, very same ideals, but we have completely different personalities. So I think when we were younger, we just played together. But by the time I went to middle school, high school, I started to kind of, we just have our differences and how we do things. But I think we have more of an understanding. He's becoming like, a man in his own right. And so I think we're able to see eye to eye on some things and we just respect each other's differences.
Exactly.
But that took a little bit of time to do.
Yeah. With maturity comes growth and understanding. And with that understanding, you allow things tend to bother you less that before it did. At least that's what I occurred with me and my brothers.
Yeah, definitely so.
Do you see them following in your footsteps when it comes to the community service work and things of that nature?
Not necessarily. I think that's where me and my brother, we don't necessarily see eye to eye on always, which isn't isn't a bad thing. So his goal is like he's studying earth and environmental science, and he wants to do something with science, something I can't even describe. So he just has different interests. But I think that he definitely again grew up in the same household, so he gets it, but he just has different a different walk in his own life. Which again is just something that I had to kind of grow to respect on his end too. Like he's not going to be like me, which is perfectly fine. There's more. Everyone has their own little path that they have to kind of walk through their own journey.
And how's your relationship with your parents?
Yeah, it's better. So I think I feel like I've always been a little like and kind of contentious with my parents just because I grew up with my grandparents for the most part. But I think as I got older, I think for me it was a more maturity thing on my end. So like I'm more closer with my parents aren't together, but I'm more closer with like my father, and then I've always been kind of a mama's boy a little bit, but definitely developing more of like a bond with my dad. That's
cool. That's great that the understanding is coming, because like very similar to yours is I garnered a better relationship with my mom as I got older. Right. Not everybody gets that though. So, and not everybody understands that, and sometimes it's too late.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like again like growth aspect. We grow and we see things differently, and perspectives change. So I definitely think that's kind of what happened.
What were your interests in high school?
So I think for me, I had a weird kind of high school experience. So for me, I went to like a Title I high school, like a low income high school for the first like 2 years. So we went through my family, we had like we experienced like the first set of like the housing crisis. Like we had our home foreclosed on. So we were like kind of like homeless for like a year. And so I think after that experience, that changed like my perception. Before I was into just girls and basketball and football, and which was still the case afterwards too. But I wanted to figure out
priorities changed.
Like my priorities changed. I started figuring out like I want to be more into like social justice and helping people after that experience. So that was like the defining moment for me.
Wow. Since that point, did you automatically knew that what you wanted to do, or you just knew that you wanted to do something to help the community?
Yeah, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and still don't know. But I knew it was something like I wanted to do. Whatever I wanted to do, I wanted to be like with people and with helping people and service. This idea of like just being like a servant. And don't know really what capacity that's in, but as long as I'm doing that, I feel like fulfilled.
Good. You went to college at Furman University.
Right. Yeah. So, funny, I wanted to go to Morehouse. That was like my number one school, but I didn't get enough money. So I went to Furman, which is it's in Greenville, South Carolina. It's like a small private liberal arts college. Yes, I went there. So I just applied, ended up getting some funds to go there. Mm-hmm. Not full ride, but like I got enough funds to kind of keep me going. Yeah.
And what was your major?
So I double major. I studied political science and philosophy. And then I had like a concentration in like Black studies. So I was just like reading. I love to read. So that was something that I always did. I hated math, science. I didn't know really what I wanted to study. So I just kind of took a whole bunch of different classes and found those two. It's kind of be like the track that I wanted to go on.
And when you took when you took that as one of your majors, were you going on the idea of lawyer?
Yeah,
in that direction?
Exactly. So like, I think when I was 10, I said I want to be a lawyer. So I think that it wasn't something I wanted to do. It was just something I said, and so I just kind of stuck with it. I really didn't figure out what I wanted to do until maybe my like last semester, senior year. It's just something I said I was going to do, so I needed a path just to keep my parents calm and everyone at bay. So I just said lawyer.
I'm doing something.
Right, I'm doing something. Like it's something.
And then you did your graduate at Johns Hopkins, correct?
Yeah. So it's an online degree through. So I did Teach for America out of college. And so they have like a program with Johns Hopkins. You can get like a master's online while you're teaching. So during my second year of teaching, second or third year teaching, but I think second and third year is 2-year program. I got it through them.
What made you decide to go into that program? What was the impetus behind that?
To be honest with you, it was just like the opportunity. And so it's almost like the door open for me. So I just didn't, I really didn't, I never thought about a master's degree in education before. But again, it was just like they presented the opportunity, and we were able to use some of the funds from Teach for America. We had like AmeriCorps funds to pay for like some of the coursework.
Wow.
So it was like really cheap, wasn't bad. It was online, so I could kind of do it at my own pace. So it kind of just makes sense to do it.
And that makes a lot of sense. And it's something that we talk about on the podcast often is, when opportunities present themselves, being in a position to take it and being prepared enough to take it.
Right, exactly.
And so, because I'm sure you're not the only one that was offered that, but you were in a position to be able to take it and to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, to make, make a lot out of it as well.
Right.
What was that experience like?
So I hate online learning. So for me, it was just like, it was just something, I guess kind of like what you said, it was just an opportunity to do. It was really easy because it was online. I feel like I wasn't pushed because I have to have somebody like in my face to kind of like motivate me and keep me going. But it's kind of like the idea of that, of a door opens for you, don't close that door. And that's something my grandparents did kind of instill in me, is like kind of the idea of blessings. And like when these blessings come before you, like you don't shun your blessings.
Exactly. It's crazy how those things that happen to us when we're young have an influence on us later, and we might not even realize it until we really sit down and analyze it.
Right. Yeah.
What was your experience like for Teach for America? How was that, and how did that spark, or was that the spark that got you to the point where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. So I applied to Teach for America like last deadline my senior year. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I applied a couple of law schools, ended up getting TFA. So I was placed in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I taught 8th grade for 1 to 2 years and 7th grade for 1 year. So I taught 3 years in the classroom. I ended up loving my experience. I know some people have like different opinions on it. But I think, again, I was serving kids, and I was like, in the community. I coached football and baseball, so I was always with kids and after school. And so I think for me, I've decided I wanted to do something with education, like while my experience teaching. What that was, I still didn't know yet, but I knew it was going to be something with kids, something in that space.
So look, it sounds like, just again hearing your story, and maybe our listeners will come to this conclusion as well, is that there's a lot of things that were set kind of in play from at a young age that just kept on helping mold you into finding this path, or guiding you into finding this path, because like you said, your grandfather instilling that idea of service and community, serving the community.
Right.
And then the situation that you went through that made you realize, like, I can have an effect on people, and I want to get people out of the position or help them not be in the position that I was in.
Right, right.
And then it just keeps on fostering and fostering, and then you got the opportunity with the Johns Hopkins program to
like build that even further. So it
just seems like things are just pushing you in that direction, and it's adding up to this culminating factor.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was as I was like, I have a plan, then like I'm kind of a spiritual, so I think I have a plan, then I think there's a God's plan. So for me, like every plan that I've always had failed. I wanted to go to law school, that didn't work. I wanted to go to Morehouse, that necessarily didn't work. So I feel like I was pushed in whatever direction I'm being pushed in. I just kind of had to just go with the punches and go with the flow. So not really resisting it, but more embracing that. And
that's something that I definitely believe in is if you don't want to call it God, if you don't want to, whatever you want to call it, whatever name you want to put on it. But I do believe that there are things that are there to push you in a certain direction to be the best you that you can be.
Exactly, yeah.
And some people don't see it, don't accept it, and try to fight it. And some people go with it. Just because a lot of the things you're saying is a lot of the things that I went through. I wanted to be a doctor. I'm not.
Right.
But everything happened to get me to the point where I am now, and I'm happy where I'm at, and I can still see that it's still guiding me into the direction, because Lord knows, little 10-year-old D-Ray would do podcasting.
Right. Yeah.
Would be doing a website about music reviews.
Right.
I always knew I loved music. I always knew that, but it's so I just think that's really important and really special that you're understanding how things are navigating you to your point.
Yeah, exactly. That's powerful.
I wanted to ask you, going back to the Teach for America, because I think it's very admirable for teachers. I am the worst. I have patience, but I don't have patience.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
I have a tremendous patience with patients, like when I'm working in the medical field.
Right.
But trying to teach somebody, because I'm not teaching them anything, I'm extracting information from them.
You're right. That makes sense.
Now, trying to instill information, that takes a whole nother type of patience. And so I want to ask how your experience was from the different age groups that you did, as well as just as outside of how you felt about it, but just instilling information into the youth.
So for me, I loved 8th grade. So 8th grade was, they were about 14, 15 at that point.
So that's the sweet spot for you. That's the
sweet
sweet
spot.
right there.
7th grade was rough because it's just like they have a lot of energy, and it's almost like you got to match your energy. I'm not necessarily, I'm low energy. I'm like mild energy. Like that's kind of the tone that I have. And so for my classroom, I set that tone, and my 8th grader just fell in line. They were kind of cool. I played jazz in the background. We were just cooling it. But the 7th graders came in their hype, and so I had to figure out how to match
they
that.
on that future, that Migos.
Exactly. And so, even though I was like a 3rd year teacher, I still had to I was like, man, I feel like I was a 1st year teacher again, because I was a whole new age group, whole new experiences, and not as mature.
So you did the 8th grade first?
Yeah, 8th grade for 2 years, and then I was moved down to 7th grade for a different team, and that is 7th grade for 1 year. But yeah, it was just a different experience. Even like with the type of conversations I could have with them, the maturity level wasn't necessarily there. They're just coming from 6th grade, 11 years old. So I couldn't have deep conversations with them just yet. So by the end of the 7th grade year, by like March, let's say maybe February, March, they started to kind of mature up a little bit. But it took some growth for them. Yeah.
The question that, because I like playing sometimes devil's advocate in a sense. Do you think your experience would have been, or do you think you would have got to the same point? Again, we'll never know this question as a thought experiment, but if you taught the 7th grade for the 2 years first.
That's interesting. I think I would have been more prepared to teach 8th grade probably if I taught 7th grade first, just because I would have known. I would have probably knew how to interact with that age group a little bit better. But it's just that is such a gap between the two that I wasn't prepared for.
Even though it's just one age, or one grade level rather.
Yeah,
and that's why it makes sense when they have those jumps from elementary school, middle school, high school, because it's a big jump. Even though it is sometimes a year to 2 years.
Yeah.
So taking it from there, what was the transition point from that point?
So I did TFA 3 years. I was going to continue going. And actually this is another way of just things open for you. So I had one of my friends that was in TFA with me. He taught same subject, same grade. But we had always kind of just talked about education equity and changing communities and different things like that. So around my 2nd year teaching, we used to do just dinners and just house parties for teachers that we knew. And we wanted to focus on how can we build more of a community of men of color who were teachers, Black men who we knew. So that, we started doing these dinners maybe every other month, every now and then. But it started off 2 teachers would come, 10 teachers, 30 teachers. And it was wait a second,
we're on to something. We got something.
We got something. So let's figure out how to put some programs behind it, metrics behind it. We ended up applying for a fellowship. My 2nd year of teaching, it was my 3rd year teaching. We applied for this fellowship. I had never heard of it before. I just found it online, submitted an application, and we got accepted to the final round, which is going to New York and pitching it.
Oh, wow.
We didn't have any programs, no metrics behind it, but we ended up going and pitching it, and they loved the idea, and so they funded us. So part of the funding was that we had to leave our jobs. And it's a 2 year seed funding, and that was kind of the start of what we're doing now. But it was very organic. It wasn't I was set off to start a nonprofit. We literally just got our nonprofit status last year, so we're just still very new, still trying to figure it out. But yeah, that's where I'm at now.
That's amazing. And I want to go back a little bit. And when you started first having these meetings, the group started to grow and grow. What made you decide to continue? I know you said that, it started and you realized you were onto something, but something had to push you to say, let me look for these fundings. Let me look for something and what was that? Because I like getting to the cause of it so that we can inspire other people to do the same thing, and so that they don't miss their blessings or miss their calling or miss their direction.
Definitely. So, so for us, it was, it's very intentional. So our focus was, we had all these men of color in the space. They were all teachers. They were all doing great work in their community. But the thing is that, once we started looking at some data and research behind Black male teachers, just men of color who are teachers, we found out that there was 2% of all your teachers in the country are men of color. So most of your students, but especially your, boys don't have will never have a Black male teacher in their life. And that was really inspiring for us. I was, I had some of my students came up to me, was Mr. Terrell, you're my father. I'm like 22 years old. You know, I'm looking like, wait a second, like this is a lot.
Yeah, there's a
And
lot
I
of
said the same
responsibility.
thing. Yeah, I said the same thing to my business partner too. Like you're like a father figure. So for us, it was like, all right, how can we really like help these teachers to be the best they can be for their kids? Because we know how much of a role they play, like, you know, in the school.
It's a tremendous role.
Yeah.
I can remember me as a youth. I've had 2 black teachers in my life before I got to college,
Right.
and one of them was in high school and one was in elementary school, and both of them I remember to this day and were instrumental, especially the one in elementary school. He's the reason really why I do like reading as much as I do. That fostered that asking questions and trying to dig deeper, and that's what gravitated me into liking science and math is because you're always asking that question of why, how,
Right.
you know, especially with science. And so he fostered that in me, and I don't think I would be at the place I am if I didn't have that. So it is very important, and I do definitely agree with you. I don't know the statistics. I'm not gonna act like I do, but I will say from my experience, and I lived in a lot of places, and like I told you prior to the podcast, that I lived in a lot of places that have been diverse, and I only, like I said, had 2 black teachers in my life.
Were they males?
And both of them, luckily, I won't say luckily, because it's either that they were male. The one in high school, at that point I didn't need it as much of that I guess fatherly figure or that male role model that I can look up to and say, okay, this is what I can try to aspire to be.
Right.
I can take these admirable qualities that you're exposing and distributing to me. I saw him do that to another level with a lot of young men.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's when I realized how of an impact it really has outside of myself.
Right. That makes sense.
So and so I can say I can validate that. I can see that it does help. And brother to the left, he's one of the students of the teacher that I'm talking about. He wouldn't be in college if it wasn't for that teacher. He said it before. I'm not saying anything that he wouldn't say.
Right.
So it is important, and it like I said, that's why it's very admirable of what you're doing, because there's a lot of kids in those situations that need that, and they don't have it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's powerful.
Thanks. I wanted to ask you, when you and your business partner started seeing that and realizing that and finding those statistics of the disparity, did you ever find out a cause or what you can come up with as a cause for that disparity between especially men and women, as well as people of color? I can come up with a conclusion on my own. I would think that's probably pretty accurate, but
yeah. So there's 2 like kind of like big stats that we like to kind of like we found that's like really important to our work. So the first is that so there's like a big issue with when it comes to like recruiting, like, you know, these men to be teachers, but like the biggest issue is actually like keeping them in the classroom. So most of them leave within like a year or 2. So it's like over like, you know, a quarter of the teachers will leave. Men of color specifically will leave in that 2-year time frame, compared to like 2%, 1% for any other demographic.
okay.
So one of the biggest reasons why there's like a barrier of entry is because one is like the lack of like mentorship. So once, you know, I was fortunate when I was a teacher, I had another teacher he was like another black brother, 13-year veteran. He kind of took me under his wing and like kind of groomed me to be a better educator. And I think I wouldn't have stayed even for past my TFA term if it wasn't for him. So that was like really important for me. A lot of teachers don't have that.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of teachers that we work with who are sometimes the only like black males in the whole district. So like, you know, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So that's like one of the biggest reasons. The second reason is like it's like a theory we like to throw around. It's called like you can't be what you can't see. So oftentimes if you don't see a male educator of color, you know, it's really hard for you to say I want to do that. Like I never thought about being a teacher, but I never had a black male teacher anyway. So I didn't think, you know, I never thought education was like a pathway for me. I just didn't even think about it. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because before President Obama, I remember my freshman year in college, my roommate, his best friend, he was saying he was going to be the president. And I remember saying in my head, as well as out loud,
right,
bro, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Because like you said, because I've never seen it,
right,
I couldn't believe it would happen.
Right.
So like that's just, and then the fact that I saw it, I was like, okay, well, he has a shot.
Right.
it's a small shot still.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's a shot.
Yeah, it went from 0 in my head to a percentage.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that is true and important.
And it's not just for teachers. It's
anything.
it's any profession, like doctors, lawyers.
That's what got me into being a doctor. I had a really bad asthma attack when I was very young, and the doctor that assisted me was a black doctor, and he, as soon as I showed that I was interested in medicine, he literally was like, "Oh," he started sending me books about medical stuff, and that kept me from that point on until college. I kept doing it, it's kept me on that track, and I'm still in the medical field. So you're here. It's still, it affected me that much. So seeing him in that position made me feel that I could do it, right? That it was possible, that it is attainable. And so it is important to have those outlooks. And that's why we talk about on other podcasts as well, is that you have to have demographics or diversity in every demographic, right, in every area. Because if you don't, like on TV, in every aspect, because it allows it does affect you psychologically. Right. How's the program? How's the first couple of years? Well, you're still really young in the program, but how was the first year? So
we're kind of like we started in 2014, but we really didn't. I started full time with the work in 2015, August 2015. So this is about maybe a year and a half, 2 years and a half, 2.5 years, excuse me. So we've learned a lot in that time frame. We've grown a lot. So, again, we've flipped our program out like 5 or 6 times just because we're growing. We're learning the landscape, we're learning new things. So right now, basically, we're a membership-based organization for Black and men of color who are educators. They receive professional development, community building, support, mentorship. And our goal is to keep these teachers in the classroom longer than like the average. So it's really retention focused, but we use like this idea of like building community as a way to keep teachers invested, keep them in the classroom, help them understand like their purpose, why they're there in the first place, and so they'll stay longer. And
I want to go back to a little bit when you said that you got the funding. They said that you had to stop working in essence, and was that because they wanted to make sure that you devoted 100% of your time, that it wasn't a hobby or exactly, that it was that you're trying to make this actually a career or an actual not that it wasn't an actual thing prior, but they
really, want to see if you're real, And we took I was a teacher in North Carolina, so we like one of the lowest paid states for education, but we took a pay cut to do what we're doing. So initially. And so for us, it was like we had to go, and that was a big, just like a leap of faith, just like we had a door that was open, we had this funding, and it was just like, look, we can take a pay cut, which we were still want to make a lot, and do this work, but we didn't know like it could have failed the next year. We just kind of took a leap of faith and just kind of kept my fingers crossed. But I ended up moving out of my apartment into another apartment that was smaller, like downsized, like. I traded my car and got another car. So I made a lot of sacrifices to do the work I'm doing. And so, the goal is that, just go all in now. I had nothing to lose. And, I kind of came this far. So I feel comfortable that, I'm not going to, be just dropped off now.
And that's admirable because, like I said in the Will You Stand, Sit, or Take a Knee podcast, that's what I was talking about the Colin Kaepernick taking a knee and everything, is that at that point we were talking about trying to invoke change and trying to make a change for the positive, especially for people of color. And what I continually saying, what I will preach is that, and I have to bring it to music because, the podcast started by music, but in the High 4 Hours, J. Cole says, change is slow, always has been, always will be. So if we want to expedite that and make and get things to move faster, we have to make bigger and bigger sacrifices, because without sacrifice you won't nothing happens long lasting without a sacrifice.
Right, exactly.
And like I said on that podcast, it doesn't always have to be money. It can be money, it can be time, it can be family, it can be friends.
Right. Something's got to give.
Worst case scenarios, life. Yeah. Because at that time it was people losing their life. Scott.
Yeah, it's powerful.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like MLK lost his life fighting for it. So there are sacrifices, and I'm not telling people sacrifice your life. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying sacrifice your livelihood to, like, if you got a job, keep your job. But we all can do things outside of what we're already doing.
Yeah, like I know
to make things better.
Then my business partner, even like with that, like he Ubered on the side. I was like, I did like a part-time job helping like recruit teachers from another organization. So we figure out how to make it work. And just give.
But that's still a sacrifice because you working 2 jobs at that point, causing you to get less lead.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody want, you know what I'm saying? So I'm saying,
Yeah.
like, that's what I'm saying is people can make sacrifices in small degrees, and those small degrees can make big effects, and just like your program is doing.
Yeah.
Because the fact that you just being a teacher alone, you were getting those responses by young men, our young boys that will eventually become men.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those values instilled in them, that knowledge, that the ideas, the ideals that you're putting in them can foster them to then affect that change, and then it becomes bigger and even bigger, and it keeps on that snowball effect.
Right.
So I just think it's very powerful and very admirable. Again, I can't think of a better word than that.
I appreciate it.
For that work that you guys are doing. With that being said, I want to ask you, what were some of the setbacks that you had in this process outside of some of the ones that you already named?
So I mean, I think the biggest thing was a learning curve. So I never ran a nonprofit before. We're like CEOs of a nonprofit. Didn't know what that looks like, how to set a budget. And my role specifically is like operational management, money to finances. So again, I'm not a finance person. I studied political science and philosophy in college, never taken a finance class. So for me, it was just a learning curve. So I just read a lot. Pretty much anything I can read about how to do a nonprofit, how to set up a 501c3. Research. I mean, use Google. That's like the best. And YouTube is like the best tool. So that was like the biggest step. The second setback was like social capital. So like in order to get funding, you got to know people. You got to be in certain circles. Networking. So I was a teacher. I never talked with a funder before. I don't know what a funder conversation was. So a lot of that was, again, it was research, but now I was researching people. Like, who are the people that I need to be reaching out to?
What are they saying? What are they doing?
Exactly.
But that has to come with a balance too, because you don't want to be too eager and just like bombard people because but you don't want to be too laid back and not get what you need at the same time. How was that navigating through that?
That was hard because initially it was like I'm just reaching out to everybody like, hey, we need money, we need like finances for our program and for our own personal pockets, like. So at first it was just really,
so we can live,
so we can live. So it took a while for me to get to a balance where it was more strategic, but at first it was no strategy behind it. It was just whoever can give us money at the time. So now it's a lot more strategic, and we have like a plan of action, how we do things, how we like fundraise and different things like that.
Okay.
But also I think it wasn't a setback, but I think the thing that helped us the most is like a team. So I think we. Myself and my business partner, we're a good team. We're the completely opposite, but we work together. He does our program work. He's perfect at that. I do all the behind the scenes.
Complement each other.
We complement each other. And then we have a board. So the board was like some of our friends who were like, we're down there. We can't necessarily give you $5,000, but we can work. We can help you, write email, do emails, phone calls.
Sacrificing just a little bit. They sacrificing their time.
Time, right. So I think that team, definitely helped us out a lot.
That's amazing, and that's something that we've talked about on the podcast before, about just having a good team around you, a good network around you. Usually, we talk about it in the creative essence of with other musicians, like on the Sons of Silverton podcast when he was in the Watabi tribe. He was talking about how the energy that they have, and him with Kyle David, how they work together. It's just when you're around creative people, it creates more creativity. When you're around good people, or you're around people that have the same idea, the same focus, even if you are different, it helps move that dream along even better.
Definitely so. Yeah.
How was it finding those people to help build that team? How was that process?
So for me, it was very organic. Like my roommate was one of my best friends. This is from college. He was my roommate at the time. He's on our board. So just like the people who we knew in our circles, who we could trust. So that's how it started first, like kind of keeping the circle small. And I'm naturally a person where I like personal relationships. So the people I really trusted, again, even they don't, he doesn't have any nonprofit skills either, but he can at least help me, help me research, help me navigate some of these spaces.
And how's your family in accepting this? Because this is kind of similar in a different way to a starving artist or a starving musician.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
it's the same.
You're not. This ain't gonna get you no money. This ain't gonna pay your bill. Like in most people's minds, but if they stick around for the vision long enough, it will pay off. But you gotta have that it's a marathon, not a sprint.
And they were skeptical at first. They were kind of like, at first they didn't think it was real. It's kind of like, okay, so you're gonna do this for like a year, and then you're gonna get a real job.
Yeah, this is a little hobby. Okay,
this is a hobby.
Right.
This is cute. You got a little website, everything. So it's just like a starving artist. Because I'm not. I love hip hop. I'm sure we get into that. So I don't rap or nothing, but for me, my creativity is like my work, and this is kind of my creative space. So yeah, they just treat like it was a star and artist at first.
They're on board now though.
They're on board more now. Yeah, more so now. They're like, all right, we kind of get it. We see. I've invited them to events that we might have. I invite them out, so they can kind of see it firsthand. So they get it now. But at first they were kind of just like trying to figure it out.
I want to talk about some of the awards. Let's explain that the Echoing Green Fellowship.
So that's the fellowship we won that started this whole process. Okay. So that's like our so basically what it is they're based out of New York. They fund 50 startup nonprofits every year. Mm-hmm. They have 3 tracks. So the first track, if you're interested in starting something with like climate change, the second one is global. The last one is like Black male achievement. So we fit right perfectly in that space. So again, we had never, I know anything about it. It was just an application. But they really trusted, and we didn't even have a program, but they trusted us. Like they kind of just took a chance on us. So we were happy for that.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
and I'm sure a lot of people were applying for that, and that you guys were the ones that walked away with it.
Yeah.
What about the Forbes 30 under 30?
Yeah, that was cool.
That's pretty amazing, bro.
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing.
And so it was so you're nominated for it. So we found out we were nominated back in November. We didn't really know anything about it really. We had do a questionnaire, a survey, and they told us that we will find out when everybody else found out on January 3rd. And so I forgot about it. Somebody texted me like, hey, did you check, Forbes this morning? So then I checked and we saw our face on there as being nominated. Man, so that was really cool because we had, this is at this time it was 2 years in. So we put in a lot of work. So it's cool to be recognized for that.
Yeah, but to me, the thing that speaks more to me is, the award is great, but the fact that you guys had the consistency and the dedication to stay with it for that long before really getting, some real recognition.
Yeah.
And then the recognition that you get is freaking amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that must be gratifying knowing that, finally somebody that's outside of our world is really seeing how hard we're working.
Exactly, man. Initially we're in our own little education bubble. So, but I think you're right. It's cool that people are noticing that. And what we're doing is it really hasn't been done yet. Even in the space of education, not even with Black male teachers, just the idea of bringing teachers together to build community amongst themselves, to keep them invested and happy and keep them going. So it's really cool for almost to be a little model of what that looks like.
Yeah, because that's what caught my attention, and that's how when I saw that, I was like, this is an awesome thing that I'm seeing, and I was like, that's what made me want to get to know more and continue the relationship that we had.
Yeah.
To getting to the podcast.
Right.
What do you think is the key to your success though?
I think it is when I think about success and the key to that, I think it's just kind of going back to those values that it was instilled in me. So when we first started the organization, me and my business partner, we sat down, we came up with these are our core values, and we listed love and unity and different things. But this idea of going back to the values, something my granddad instilled in me was if you don't need to be rewarded for doing work, there's something you do, and it should be something I feel it intrinsically, I feel good, I'm helping out. I don't need an award or accolade for that. So I think that kind of helps me be grounded, just going back to those values and what I stand for.
Yeah, and I definitely I think that is a benefit, because if you like I've said before, so is if you're looking for money, you're going to always be chasing money.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because you'll never have enough. You'll never have enough. Think about it now. Billionaires are trying to be quadrillionaires.
Right.
You get $1 million, you're like, oh, I need 2 million. I need 3 million. I need $1 billion. If you're looking for, fame, you're going to always be chasing that, because that's going to be fleeting.
Right.
The older you get, the harder you got to try. When you're on top, you got to try to stay on top.
Right.
When you're not on top, you got to get to the top. It's always going to be something you're going to try to obtain. But when you're trying to satisfy yourself and what makes you happy inside, again, going back to J. Cole, love yourself. Nobody's life is better than yours. If you just really kind of internalize that and really believe that and do what makes you happy, like you said, helping people makes you happy. And you found a way to do it in a way that satisfies you.
Right.
That's the same thing for me, is helping people and and getting people to think in different manners is something that makes me happy. And so that's why the podcast brings me that joy. And then I get the joy of helping people through the medical aspect.
Right.
So those are the things that, like I said, if I didn't make $1, but somehow I could live, I'd still be happy doing the same things that I'm doing now.
Yeah. I think that's probably is like, if you know, I would do this work even, I work all the time. It doesn't even feel like work anymore. It's just something I enjoy doing. So like, I don't have to get paid for it.
The same thing.
It's just, I want to create. I want to figure out different ways to make this better.
Shoot, I wish I had more time to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem that I have is like, can we get 28 hours in a day?
Yeah.
Can I get just a couple of more hours to do more?
Yeah.
And I want you to go into what are your plans moving forward for the future? Just yourself as well as with the organization.
Yeah. So it kind of goes back to like, from the experience of me, I told you I think I have my plans, like things like God's plans. Like I've chosen not to actually make any plans right now. So like,
and
I just kind of live right now. Like, the fact that I'm in the Bay, I've never been here before. Like I'm able to travel and do different things that are real cool and never had the opportunity to do before. So for me, I'm like, I'm not going to set a next step. I'm just going to continue working on now. So that's a good question. And I would normally like always have like a 5-year plan. I've always been like that type of person, but this is the first time I'm like, like, I don't know. Personally, I have like personal goals I want to hit, but at least with like, career wise, professional wise, I don't know.
But I want to piggyback off that is because it can be misinterpreted what you're saying because some people might be like, oh, he's just wandering out there. But I think there's a difference between not having a plan, but still having a purpose. You still have your purpose.
I have a purpose and I have a goal and I know what I want to do I want the organization to be the best that it can be and to touch as many people as it can.
Exactly. So that's what I mean. You don't necessarily have 5-year, whatever, that kind of plan, but you still have a purpose.
Right.
And so I just wanted to put that out there because I don't want people to misconstrue what you're saying in any regard because I know that's not the case.
Right. But as far as like professionally, I'm not like looking forward to like my professional next step. It's just like making sure the work is better and serving who it needs to serve. Like
a lot of people they have their goals of, I want to have a promotion by next year. I want to make this amount of money or.
Yeah, I don't have any of that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Again, I just want to say, I think what you're doing is really great work. And I think a lot of people, they need to go to your website, profoundgentleman.org.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a teacher out there, definitely listen to the podcast. Leave us a comment. Let us know about it. Check out the website and donate. We know with the climate that we're in now, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. That
education is becoming something that's not on the forefront.
Right.
And education is our future. Without just logically think about it. If your kids are dumb, they grow up to be adults. They grow up to be what? Dumb adults.
Right.
You have dumb adults that do what? Lead companies, lead organizations, lead countries.
Right.
And then therefore you have dumb countries.
Right.
I'm not saying any country out there is dumb.
Right.
I'm just saying, but if you don't invest in education, that's the road that you're leading.
Yeah. And like, it starts with the kids, definitely starts with the people who are these teachers. Like they're not getting paid nothing, but doing some great work in some of these schools and really trying to make some impact. So
the fact that we have internet, Twitter, all social media, is we're seeing more and more the innovative ways that teachers are teaching.
Exactly.
And are really dedicated. Where, the brother with the handshakes.
Right. Yeah.
Even though I saw people stealing that, which is great. Just give him the credit. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But just that innovative way to get the kids involved, get them to have something that resonates with them. I just saw a video last week of the teacher singing about I believe it was a Civil War to Bad and Bougie.
I see that, yeah.
So like just finding different ways to
match the kids' energy.
Exactly. Like you said, exactly. That's a perfect match the kids' energy so that it retains with them.
Right.
Like Jared Carmichael said on his special, if you haven't watched it, you should. It's pretty funny. He knows more Jay-Z quotes than he does Martin Luther King.
Right.
Of course, that's a joke, but well, he probably does, to be honest. Just most people do. It's a truthful statement, which is also kind of sad at the same time.
Yeah, but it sticks with you.
Yeah,
I think,
but it sticks with you. But that's my point of that. Him saying that lets us know that there are ways that you can. I'm not saying that you should wrap everything to the kid. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying there are times you have to figure out different ways to instill things in them. Not
Right.
everybody learns the same way.
Exactly.
We've learned that. We know that now. We have to really implement that.
And
though.
adapt to it.
So again, I want to say thank you for letting us know about that. But if you don't know, the way that me and Jason first started interacting was through Instagram and talking about music. And this podcast was started as a result of music, and my love and thirst and wanting to know more about music. And so, what are you listening to now, man?
Yeah, so I mean, so music is like, hip hop is, I wouldn't say passion, but that's like my, that's what keeps me going. So right now I'm listening to 2 projects on repeat. So Young Roddy just like released a mixtape like March 3rd. So that's one of my I like his music. I like it what he talks about. And then Freddie Gibbs, one of his albums.
Yeah, that
last
Freddie
year.
Gibbs.
So he has one coming up that I'm really looking forward to.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, but I'm like listening to all his projects. Just
Okay.
kind of like keep my kind of keep the anticipation. So when he does drop his project, I'm ready for it. But those are the 2 things that I'm really listening to. And right now, there's a particular song by Saha the Prince. I got to shout him out. It's from Atlanta. Shoot, I forget the name.
Put him on the spot.
I forget the name of the song, but it's a song about the new Africa. That's what it's called.
Okay.
But it's bad.
I haven't heard that one yet.
It's good. He just came out with that, but it's yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna check that one out, and I'm gonna tell you who you should check out, who's also from Atlanta.
Okay.
Jid,
Jib.
J-I-D.
JID. Haven't heard of Jid.
He signed to J. Cole's new label.
Okay.
Oh, not new label, but label Dreamville with Boss. The Never Story. That's his album. It dropped last week or 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Bruh.
All right, so bad. Yeah.
Bruh.
It's good.
It's good. I've been having it on repeat. It has a Tribe Called Quest kind of feel on some tracks. Somebody on Instagram said when I put Louder, which is the closing track, boy, he goes in. And J. Cole produced that beat, man. That beat is fire, and he goes in. But
so no, most of the artists on Dreamville, I rock with, I love. So
yeah,
I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, he was going in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good album. It's a good complete album.
Okay,
Really good.
That's a bet.
What other? Big Sean's album was all right to me.
It's all right. Yeah, it's all right. I just was finished. I know I kind of stick with the album. I kind of kill it. So the album I just finished killing, it was Run the Jewels.
Oh yeah, Run the Jewels 3.
So I destroyed that one. So
Don't get captured.
yeah. So that was about a good December, January. Just me nothing, but just that was on.
Yeah,
so I know
Run the
I
Jewels.
kill it and then I had to go to something else.
Yeah, see, for me, I'll in the beginning when it releases, I'll play it a couple of times because I'm trying to get back to writing reviews. I just don't have the time yet.
Right.
But it still gives me able to talk about it on the podcast. But after I listen to it a couple of times, I'll put it down and go to the next one. And then if it's really good, I'll keep it in the rotation. Like the J. Cole's been staying in the rotation. Odyssey's album, Iceberg. That's a good album too.
Okay. I've heard of Odyssey. I haven't heard of.
He's good.
Okay.
He's a producer, rapper, deep. Yeah, I think you would like him.
Okay. I'm gonna check that out.
The album that got me really interested in him was The Good Fight. Is a real positive album about just basically finding the good fight. Like regardless of what everybody anticipates or what everybody says, you're gonna do what you think is right, regardless of what outside world thinks.
True.
Is kind of the theme of that album.
Okay.
So yeah, I would check that one out. What do you think is about the state of music now? Just the fact that with the internet being so available, anybody and everybody can basically put up a track and become an artist. What do you think about that? And specifically hip hop.
Right, hip hop. So specifically, I do like that. I like that, we have easy access to music. So, with SoundCloud and just different ways.
Spotify, Tidal,
and,
Apple Music. Yeah.
Right. Easy way for us to get music really it's really accessible, which is real good. So what makes it, good for the listener, for me. Mm-hmm. I do think like as of late, I have been oversaturated by it. So it's like, I can't enjoy a project because it's so much music. It feels like every 5 seconds is something,
a new one coming out.
So I've been a little frustrated by that. So it's like, I want to be able to sit down and enjoy it and like think about it, go back to it. But I'm having a hard time doing that because like I'm always waiting for the next album to drop. So it's like it does seem like it's an oversaturation of music right now. which isn't a bad thing, I guess. I mean, it's good. People are getting their music out and eating. They gotta, they're working. So, but again, it just feels that way. As far as like the state of like the sound, like I heard there's there's a lot of debates about like with the new style isn't like as good as the old style. I personally like I'm more partial to like kind of more not old school hip hop, but more like lyrical things that say something to me, like more of a message to me. Yeah, but I mean, I do like some of the newer stuff. I really can't get with too much. Some of it was all right, but some of it just
That's where I'm at, and
it's just I can't get with it.
Evan Maddie, which is our other podcast member, he's like I said. I mean, I feel like there's a place and a time for it. Like
right.
If I'm at a club, Batty Bougie, come on, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But for me, it just I can't. It has to be more than just a vibe.
Right.
And that's what I feel like hip hop, a lot of the music now is just, it's about the vibe and not about, like you said, the message.
Right.
Like I said, every track doesn't have to have a message. Every track doesn't have to be deep. Every track doesn't have to be conscious. But you can't give me 12 16
right, yeah.
tracks of mumble rap and vibe rap. Like I need
something.
I got to stimulate my mind too. And that's like, and going back to another, except this time it's a Ab-Soul quote. Hip is for the movement. Or no, hip is for intelligence and hop is for the movement.
Right, yeah. Heard
so
that, yeah.
like I need that intelligent aspect of it as well. Like I need, you can give me the movement and that's what I'll call the vibe.
Right, but I mean, I need to think about something.
But I need to think about something as well. And
right.
if you can provide both, you in there.
And it doesn't even, for me, you're right, I definitely think that music that challenges me intellectually, like Ab-Soul does a great job at that. But even like things that I can like relate to, like personal experience. So when people talk about like Freddie Gibbs, he does a great at storytelling. So he talks about this. I don't necessarily have been through everything, by no means, but that greediness,
it's
like
enough
this,
that you can relate to.
It's real. Yeah. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah. I'm definitely with you on that. Is that like it doesn't have to all be conscious. It doesn't have to be like, oh, now I'm thinking about the universe and no, it doesn't always have to be that. But it has to be like you said. It has to have one of those, or it has to be relatable.
Right. Exactly.
Relatable or something that I can resonate to.
Right.
Because like with J. Cole's Deja Vu, I mean not Deja Vu. She's Mine Part 2 when he's talking about his daughter. I don't have any kids.
Right. Right. But
I can still relate to falling, being in love and loving something. And I mean, I love my dog, and I'm not like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, but it's not a kid, but I can still relate to the fact of loving something other than yourself.
100%, yeah.
And caring about something other than yourself.
Right.
So that idea and the way that he presents it, you can get that.
Right.
And the same thing with Freddie Gibbs. That's my favorite part about hip hop is the storytelling, and that's what made me fall in love.
Same here. Like I remember, for me the first track that for me, like I think I've always loved hip hop, and that's always something I listened to. So again, my parents are young, so I mean I grew up, 90s parents essentially, but I think like the song that always like sparked me was like Kick Push. Like Lupe Fiasco's first album was like, as soon as I listened to that, I kind of relate to that because I was kind of that type of kid. And so like ever since then, that anything that kind of speaks to me in that way, I can kind of get with.
That makes sense. And I mean, like I said, I can feel that. I can understand that. What's your favorite album or track that you listen to get like motivated to keep going? Do you have one?
Oh man.
And I know it's hard putting you on the spot last minute because there's probably a lot going through your head and you're like, well, I don't want to pick that one because then I don't want to leave that one out. So it doesn't have to be your favorite, but just one that you can think of that motivates you.
I think there's two types of motivation. So I get one motivation is a motivation for action, and then the other motivation is like the motivation, like for me to be to do something. And then the other motivation is for me to like kind of just like keep going, like more of an internal. So I think for me, like the work, I like Killer Mike. He's one of my favorite artists. So when I listen to some of his music, he definitely puts me in the mindset of like do work, kind of like get in these streets and do what I got to do. Whatever that case may be, you could be sitting down writing a paper, writing a grant. but it's still like, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get this. For, I got something at stake. So I like some of his messages because he does have like more of an action-oriented approach to things. So that'll be it for him, for that. For like the more internal, like kind of just motivating me to keep going when it's hard. I like listening to like, I would say probably J. Cole probably be a good one for me because he does give me a lot of like personal motivation, things to think about, little gems. It's like, all right, like kind of like you mentioned the quote. I'm probably gonna butcher. I suck at quotes, but like you know, everyone, you know, your life is the best for you. You know, you can't
Left
judge
yourself
everything.
up track. Yeah, from 2014 Forest Hill Drive.
Right. So it makes me think like, all right, things could be rough, but you know what? Like I'm gonna be on the positive, to, you know, be optimistic about it and keep going.
Yeah. I know this is always a tough one for everybody, but who's your favorite MC? I'll break it down into two. I'll give you old and new.
Okay, so of all time, my favorite MC. That's hard. I think that's hard.
That is hard.
The song that always spoke to me, I wouldn't necessarily to me, he's like one of my favorites, is Most Def.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that who's lyrically the
dopest, right?
It's just who resonates with you the most. That
So old school, well, not old school, but like older is, I think, Most Def is particularly the song Umi Says, like
that track, those drums, man.
Yeah, like it hit me every time. It's like, yo, like I stop and just like I can't do nothing but just like zone in. That song, like, I'm locked into the song.
Yeah.
So I think
anytime that song comes on, regardless of where I'm at, if I'm mid conversation, it's like hold up, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Push things on pause for a second. New. So artists that are right now, that really just like relevant right now. It's a lot of them, I think.
You can give a couple. I won't break it down to one. I'll give you room I'll give you a little wiggle room.
All right. I think for right now, I think so I think I have like 3 that I'm thinking about. And I guess I wouldn't consider them. So we thinking about new as in like they're putting out music now, or they just new as in like they're just come on the scene as of recent?
I'd say, shoot, either way.
Okay.
You just have whatever it is, just qualify it so that everybody else know.
All right. So I think the first artist would probably be, I like Sahai the Prince. He's one of my favorite artists in terms
I like
of,
Sahai.
you know, I wish he would put out more music.
That's what I was gonna. That's the reason why I can't put him up there, because I've heard the album that he came out with was like, it feels like 3-4 years ago. The one that I'm thinking about where he had I can't think of the name of it.
The Ivy League or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just remember there was a video and it was like black and gray. Cause didn't he sign to Good Music?
Yeah, he did.
It was right after he signed to Good Music, that album.
Yeah.
That's how? Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
And I was like, okay. Cause when I heard him on Kanye's, he was on one of Kanye's tracks. I can't think of the name of it right now. I was like, oh, yo, this dude spits. And then I started checking out his mixtapes and just background stuff. And then I heard that album. I was like, okay. I was like, it's a cool album, but I think he has more to give.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. And I think I like him because when he does drop a song, I always just like, it does make you thinking he has a different perspective on things. So like, I definitely would check out the song, his recent song. He has a video for it too. But it's crazy. Like the themes of the song and how he frames it. Basically, the song is like, Black people, you know, if we would go back and we made, you know, instead of Atlanta being a place for strip clubs, maybe that's Mozambique. And maybe if Puffy, instead of, you know, he might buy up some property in like Sierra Leone, and like if we took our assets and we bought it, what would that look like? You know,
the Marcus Garvey.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, man, that's 10 out on the track, and the way he flows on it, it's pretty cool. So I'm
definitely check that out.
So when he does drop gems, I really like.
Okay, so you got Sahai.
So the other two, I just had to look at my playlist. I was drawing some blanks. I like Isaiah Rashad a lot.
Yeah.
So I did, you know, it's Sylvia Demo.
That sold me.
That was it. And then the Sunstyle Ray, that was it. So
I like Sylvia Demo better.
Right.
And I'm gonna be real. When I first heard Sunshine Raid, at first, like when I very first listen, I was like, no.
Okay.
I was like, no.
How many listens did it take you to get into it?
The second time.
Okay.
Because I think I know actually I don't think I know what happened is I wanted, because I really enjoyed Sylvia Demo. When I first heard Sylvia Demo, I was like, oh, I like his production. I like the type of production that he was picking, and I like his flow over it.
Right.
I like the dynamic that he had, the juxtaposition between the production and his flow pattern. It was like production was so soft, but he was so aggressive. It was, but he was flowing. Yeah. He was flowing so smooth. It was like, how are you doing this? You're flowing smoothly over the beat, but you're so aggressive.
Right.
And that's
like
what
a perfect blend. Yeah.
And that's what I liked about him. And I didn't initially feel that on the Sunshine Raid because it has a different feel.
Yeah.
And then once after the first listen, I was like, oh no. I was like, I'm gonna listen to it again, and on the second listen, I went in more with the open mind.
Right.
And I was like, I'm going to just accept it for what it is and see if I like it or not.
Okay.
And then I still don't like it as much as Sylvia demo because there are some tracks on there I'm like, yeah, where Sylvia demo, I let that just roll.
Yeah, I still do now.
I just let that roll.
Right.
Every track I can let go. Where on the Sunset Ray, there's some tracks I'm like,
I do feel myself like maybe I can skip this one, but I feel you.
So that's why. But I do think he's a dope artist though.
Okay, that's
dope young artist, and I do want to see how he's gonna push it for the next album.
I do, yeah.
And then who's your third?
So the third, it's actually a tie between two. So I would say right now, one of my favorite artists has group, and they kind of let me down, but it's always been like the Underachievers. I don't know if you ever heard of that group. So they're based out of Flatbush, but it's two brothers one guy's named Issa Gold, the other was called AK. I've been to like pretty much every time they have a show. I've been to every show they have. They can go. They talk about. It's not necessarily conscious, but it's more of a grittiness, but it definitely has like themes about like existentialism and space and different things like that they talk about. So they're pretty good. I like them. And then the other one it was a toss up is Mick Jenkins out of Chicago. Didn't too much care for the last one as much as I like his last project. I forget what it's called. The Healing Component. It was all right.
I like that one. But the Waters is
The Waters is my favorite. Yeah.
The Waters I think is one of the best. I won't say one of the. It's one of the best concept albums.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Just because
H2O.
He keeps the theme going,
right?
But he still gives you so many different interesting ways of bringing up the same topic, and that's what I really enjoyed about that album.
And I like the Healing Component too, and I like how he does this very it's theme based. He has the theme.
It's just not as good as the Waters.
It's not as good as the Waters.
No, I agree.
But I like him. I'm excited to see what he does. So between those four artists, I like the artists I'm like looking at, really trying to figure out what they're gonna do next.
I'm gonna have to check out the Underachievers because I don't know about them, but. That's a solid list.
Yeah, I would check out specifically Conversations with the Butterflies. My favorite. That's one of my favorite albums, like by them. But it's smooth. It's smooth and it's good.
All right, I just wrote that down so I can check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
Because got to keep my ear to the streets. I would add Boss or Bass. I'm quite not sure how it's pronounced.
Boss. Yeah,
I think it's Boss. Okay,
he's all right. I like him.
Have you heard Too High to Write?
Yeah. I like
that album.
Yeah.
I like that album. Who else can I think of? Flatbush Zombie.
So Underachievers and Flatbush kind of running the same.
Okay.
They put out a joint album together.
Okay.
That was pretty good. But I like Flatbush.
Well, you know the name of their joint album?
Yeah, it's called Clockwork Indigo.
Oh, okay.
That was that one.
I heard of that album. I didn't know who it was by though. Somebody else told me about it.
I like
but
Flatbush
I don't
a lot.
remember them. The Lace Odyssey album. That was good.
That was good.
Yeah. That was my first real album that I heard of it. I've listened to other singles and tracks.
Yeah.
But that was the first album that I actually listened through front to back.
Yeah.
From them, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I like. To me, this album was like not cartoony, but like they're very like each one have like a very distinct voice.
It reminded me of kind of Wu-Tang.
Definitely so.
Because there's definitely not as many as Wu-Tang, but there's enough of them and they're so different.
Yeah.
That
you can, once they come on, it's like, all right, yeah, I get you.
And they ride the beat so differently, even though it all matches and it works well.
Yeah.
And I would check out another podcast. I'll tell you off air.
Yeah, that's a bet.
I'll give them a shout out because I think it's a really good podcast, and there's enough out here for all of us. The Sound Exploder, they did a Song Exploder. I'm sorry. And what they do is he talks to the artist and how the production was made. So he talked to I can't think of the name, but one of the dude that produced the beat to I can't remember which song. He talks about how he produced it. He's in the group Flatbush Zombies. He's one of the members.
Okay, yeah.
And then
it's like Eric is an architect, something like that. Yeah.
And then the MCs talked about how they came in on the beat and why they chose what they did. And so it was really interesting how he breaks down, and he's literally like, he'll say, yeah, I really got this first layer from this sample. And then they'll play the part that it is from it. And as he's going through it, they're building the production. So you hear it build. To me, that was the best part about it.
That's crazy.
It's like, because I like the process.
Right.
And so I thought it was really interesting, especially the creative process.
Yeah.
I would check that out.
Definitely so.
I want to say thank you again for coming in and blessing the Stay Woke podcast, your organization, and just letting us get to know you. And I think it will inspire a lot of people.
I appreciate it. Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Is there anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Not really. I think, definitely check out some of the work that we have going on. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, no problem. I want to just let all our listeners know, thank you for listening to another Stay Woke podcast. We'll have the website on our page. So we'll have a link to the website so you can go to our page to get it, or you can just go to profoundgentleman.org and check out that website. Donate if you can. Again, it's to a great cause of helping our education system, particularly men of color, so that young boys that are of color have something to look up forward to and keep these teachers in the school system, because we need them. There's a few things we need in this world that we absolutely need. Police, good ones.
Right.
Doctors, and teachers.
True. That's it.
Well, and farmers, because we need food.
Yeah.
Those are the bare minimums of the things we as a society need.
Right.
And so we need to invest in all those things. To me, health and education are the most important of those. Health, education, and food are the most important out of those four. But hey, I'm not a politician. But again, so I want to say thank you for everybody for listening to another Stay Woke podcast. Check us out next week. We know we drop it every Friday on iTunes, Google, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podomatic, and of course, thesonicbreakdown.com. And you know our motto: live, listen to some great music, and above all, love more. We out.